It is much better to be ready to anticipate rather than pretend life is constant. That quote is from Bruce Kramer, a man whose story is the reason that Convenings and now endinmindproject.org came to be. Journalist and anchor Cathy Wurzer joins me now with more on this extraordinary Minnesota outreach. Thank you so much for joining me.
It's great to see you again.
Oh, thank you so much. This is a really important bit of business that you're taking care of. So as I was thinking about it, if we're lucky enough to live to age 50, right? We all start thinking about our own end in mind. But before this project, did you ever think about your own mortality before Bruce?
Are you kidding? No. I was the type of person that would, have my fingers in my ears and la 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 la. No, I didn't want to think about that at all. And it wasn't until my dad became ill, he had a form of dementia, and then developed cancer, that I started to really start to get immersed in the medical system, start to think about the end with him. And prior to that, I had met Bruce, and with his ALS, he knew what the end would be for him. And so Bruce was kind of able to help me through my father's death. My father passed before Bruce did. And I had this, and it wasn't about death or dying with Bruce or my father. It was actually getting to watch how to live with and live as fully as possible with a very serious illness like ALS. And the great thing that I learned from Bruce is, even though his body deteriorated because of the ALS, his spirit was just so expansive, and he kept growing right up until that last breath. And I thought, I hope I can do that someday. So I had this wasn't even on my radar, not at all.
And you were able to share his story via a video, and it was, what a beautifully done story.
Well, he was a great guy. I really used to joke with him that I'm just your caddy, I'm going to tee it up, and then he just took it.
I thought you had the wherewithal to do what I wanted to do. And I knew what I wanted to do with this. I wanted to tell people that being diagnosed with a disease like ALS was no reason to be afraid.
But we did a series of conversations on NPR radio, and then that turned into some video on TPT. And one fine day, the University of Minnesota Press called us and said, would you want to do a book? And he was so excited. And he said, let's do a book. And I said, let's just relax. You're Bruce, you're dying. I mean, do you really think you want to go ahead and spend the however long you have writing a book? And he said, look, I think you're going to have to help me. His hands weren't working at all. He said, you're going to have to type, and I'm going to have to do voice recognition and just kind of, I'm going to have to just tell you what my thoughts are. He said, but I think this is my last best way to teach, because he was such a good teacher. He was the dean of the College of Education at the University of St. Thomas, and he was a born teacher. So we went off and did the book, and we did that in 3 months, start to finish.
Good for you.
Well, he was on fire. He was the busiest dying man I've ever met. It was really a master class in how to really live. And he used to say, gosh, I wish that people would understand what it takes to really live a rich, full life well before they get some sort of a diagnosis. And then, as you know, you've met people in your career where they have a really serious diagnosis, a life-limiting diagnosis, and all of a sudden it's like, well, we've got to go ahead and cram all this living in before I leave. Well, what if we were to kind of turn that on its ear and try to really do the living prior and live right through into your death?
And be very present every day.
Yes.
I actually had an interview with a man who had ALS, and so he was communicating at that point via a programmed computer.
Oh.
And so he really opened my eyes to the way we communicate, in that he had lost his ability to speak, but he said, if you were to tape your mouth shut and tape your hands and feet, but still have your mind fully awake, think of how you would feel if people started to talk over your head or around you or to other people. I still have thoughts, I still have feelings, and I still want to be able to communicate. You just have to be patient in order to hear me.
Exactly, and Bruce was the same way. He didn't lose his voice. He lived with a breathing apparatus toward the end of his life. And he would say, though, if I do lose my voice, that's going to be difficult for me. And I said, I don't think you're ever going to lose your voice, literally or figuratively, really. And he didn't. But he was the type of guy that really demanded that you were present. When you were with him, you had to learn to be present and be vulnerable. And I know we're as journalists, we are not trained to be vulnerable.
No.
And that was really hard for me.
Yeah. Because we're taught basically you have to stand back, not be part of the story, but be discussing what's going on both sides of the story, right?
Amen.
Yeah. Unless you're an advocate, and then that's a little different too, right? But yeah, I can definitely see that. So now you've gone from your events into a nonprofit. How did that come about?
That was quite a step. To take a step back, end in mind, after Bruce passed on, right before he died, literally the day before he died, it was one of those deathbed promises where he said, I want you to continue the work that we were doing. Promise me that you will. And I thought, what does that mean? We've done a book, we've done a radio series. I don't know what he's talking about. And he said, don't worry. He asked me to find the ripples in our work. And he said, don't worry, you'll know it. And I just couldn't figure that out. And after he passed, I really had a hard time with that. I just, I really missed him a lot. And I just couldn't get myself together until one day I had a meeting with a friend and a person from the Twin Cities Medical Society. And we started to talk about Bruce and decided how to carry on his work and what does that look like, and what if you did live events? What if you had a show with music and readings and interviews and then audience participation? What would that sound like? What would that be like? How would that feel? And we thought, well, what the heck, we'll give it a shot. And then the Convenings was born, and then it morphed into End in Mind, and then we decided, as we've gone around the state of Minnesota, from Ely to Laverne to Owatonna and Faribault, we've created a nonprofit. I know.
Nice, good for you.
And I wonder what Bruce would say. I always wonder, what would he think of all of this?
Yeah, that's part of the ripples.
It is.
Right?
It's definitely a ripple.
Yeah,
and I think
big one. That could be a big wave.
A really big wave. Because I think we hit a wave because of the boomers.
Right.
Baby boomers are obviously aging, and they're kind of still sandwiched between some still have parents that are alive, kids, grandkids. I mean, it's a really hard thing. And so I thought, I think we're in this sweet spot where we get to talk about not only end of life, but how do you want to live your life? Right. Because 40% of Americans have some sort of a chronic condition that is incurable, or one or more. So how do you want to live with that until you can't?
So tell me a little bit about End in Mind. So when you're with in these different towns, what's the audience participation like? Do they come prepared with questions? Do they have something that they want to say or share?
Yeah, good question. I think they're women drag their husbands, absolutely. They're not sure what's going to happen. And I invite questions as to how did Bruce live with his illness. There's always a Bruce-like person in a community. It's really amazing who we've discovered along the way in Minnesota, people who have very serious life-limiting diseases or a disability. Or one woman we met in Owatonna, Mandy, has been in hospice for quite some time, and she is a musician. She's been writing music to help her family deal with her impending death. And she joined us on stage. It was really poignant and beautiful. People want to know, how are these people doing this? Can I do the same thing? They have questions about that. And they always want to know from doctors. I always have a physician with me on stage too. What does it mean to have an advanced care directive? How do you use that? Can I change it? There's just all kinds of questions about not only how to live with an illness, but also just that end stage, how to plan for something like that. So people are really, they're hungry for this space, kind of a nice, contained, safe space where you can have these conversations. And we start it, we open the door during our events, and then we hope that people will go back to their families, their friends, and continue the conversation.
Well, that would be great if that could actually happen. I had a healthcare directive with my mom.
You did.
And so when she had a stroke, she lived with her disability for quite some time, and then gradually went from being able to walk to being in a wheelchair. But it affected her speech quite right from the start. So. But then, because of her health care directive, and when we put her into hospice care, that's when a physician pulled me aside and they said, you know, we have this. Have you looked at it? And this is what we're looking at right now. She needs, for us, and able to help her with any of the pain that she may be experiencing. We need to transition her into hospice care, and that's that was my aha moment. I had lived with the directive for a long time. It's because I would take her to her doctor's appointments and I would be her voice.
Right.
Yeah, and thankfully the doctor would ask the question directly to her, but if she looked to me for an answer, then I would answer as best I could as her advocate. But again, when that hospice moment came along, and it's like, oh, okay, so now we're there. Now we're there. And so then my brothers were able to come from California. They don't live here in this state. And so we were able to have really some nice family moments with her.
Good.
Because she then kind of popped out of the situation that she was in. And so she was able to be with us, listening and laughing at some of the stories that we were sharing.
Great.
And so
It was good she was clear
Yes.
about what she wanted.
Yes.
And you knew it.
right. Well, again, it was an aha moment then. It's like, oh, okay, now I know where we are. You know,
Right.
if you have your plan put together.
Exactly,
So do you have
exactly.
a healthcare directive now as a result?
Diana.
All right. So
All of a
when you
sudden,
leave
I
here
just-
today, you will go put it together.
Actually, I finally got mine together.
Okay,
I did.
okay.
I did. I thought, I should probably practice what I preach.
Right.
Yeah. And I have to say, it wasn't so bad. I was expecting, I don't know what I was expecting after all this time doing this work. What was kind of interesting is planning my funeral. Because knowing my family,
Yes.
they would probably screw it up. So I figured I'm going to just, if I'm sitting here doing the directive, I might as well do the funeral
Oh, I
too.
love it. No, I haven't done that.
It's kind of fun.
Okay. All right.
Fun might not be the word to use.
Well.
But it was interesting and kind of, it got you really thinking about a lot of different things. And it was a kind of an uplifting experience in a strange way.
Nice.
So now I feel like, all right,
Okay.
that's done.
Yeah.
And now I can get on to the living.
Okay.
Right? So I feel, I know someday, I hope it's in the future, I don't feel like I have a weight on my shoulders. I feel like there's a plan, and there you go.
So did you think about songs? What songs are you going to have? What verses are you going to have read?
See, that's just it. And I in my head, of course, I love Hawaiian slack key guitar music.
Nice.
Can you? Yes, that'll be
Nice.
maybe the processional, something
Okay.
like that. I have to,
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's
That's in the future.
Yeah. So
exactly.
we'll let that
So
be in the future.
I do have one.
Yeah.
But I'm glad your mom had one too, because
Yes.
we've discovered that families who don't talk
Right.
about this, wow.
Yeah, it's
That's
difficult.
sad.
Yeah, and I've personally talked with families. I did a group with caretaking last year, and that was for many of them, especially when they had parents with dementia. That was the sadness that they carried, is they didn't have that conversation with them before their parent started to slip away. And so if there's anything that we hope that our audience takes away from this, either what you're doing or what I'm doing, that they can have, A, open the door to that conversation, and B, that these things can be taken care of.
And it's also healing.
Yes.
Can be healing to have these conversations, really. To have a vulnerable, intimate conversation. It takes a while to get there, but it can be kind of healing at the very end of life.
So recently, the funeral for George H.W. Bush was held, and one of your colleagues tweeted, "Live your life as though your funeral service will be nationally televised." I thought that was pretty funny.
I loved it.
So you and I have both been on television for many years, and then you've been on radio in addition to that for many years. So what went through your mind when he said that, and then how do you turn around and look at your life with even that in mind? Because, I thought that was kind of interesting. Live your life as if it was going to be nationally televised.
Right. Well, I pray it won't be. That's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
But I do think, because when you're in the public eye, you do tend to, you try to think about legacy sometimes, right? But also, what we do after all these years, it's not exactly who we are, right? So
Right. We're multifaceted.
we are,
And-
exactly. And some people don't know all those
Right.
facets. I find that perfectly fine. Thank you. In this era of social media and sharing everything, I'm kind of private. But I do try to live my life, now that I'm getting a little bit older, with a sense of, well, this is it. I mean, there is that quote about life is not a dress rehearsal, right? So let's get cracking. So I'm more apt now to do the things that I really want to do and not worry so much about what people think. I try to live a good life. I try to be kind and generous and all those wonderful things. I fall short sometimes, but I
We
don't know.
tend to think that your audience would agree that you are kind and generous, and that's the impression
I
they
hope
have of
so.
you.
I hope so.
Yeah, because it's been nothing but good things, right? Nothing but good things.
Well,
Mostly, right?
Mostly.
Yeah.
But you do grow some barnacles in this business too. You know, that's just the nature of the business.
Right.
But by and large, I'm hoping I'm leading the life that I'm meant to live. And I think there's something about the end in mind effort that reflects that. And it just came out of the blue. I'm a political reporter. I mean, that's how I started life. And I've taken this direct left turn into this area that most people don't want to talk about at all, because it's a very scary thing. But I find it very inspirational, and I'm really having a good time.
And so, as you think, kind of end in mind for this, so the future of End in Mind is just to continue to grow, right?
Wow. As a nonprofit, our goal is we are starting a couple different things. We'll be in other communities. We're in Duluth with any luck. We'll be working in Austin and Albert Lee. We're kind of having some conversations. And then other states have contacted us to ask what we're doing and how we're doing it. We're kind of creating a community certification program.
Oh, nice.
Where you can be End in Mind certified, that the community's having these conversations, these often difficult but meaningful conversations about how do you want to live your life, how do you want the end to go. And we're kind of crafting that. What does that look like? And I don't know, maybe the sky's the limit. A podcast is in the offing. It's
Sounds good.
just going to be pretty interesting to see where this ends up. And I always, again, I wonder what Bruce would have thought about this. When we first started thinking about this, he thought it would be interesting to maybe do a second book. And I said, I think we just need to let that book lie, And now that there's this community, multi-layered community engagement thing that we have going on, it is perfect for him because it reflects what he was all about, which was community and conversation and connection. And I think he would love something like this. I really
would think
do.
you would have all the materials for a second book as you move out into all of these different communities.
Well,
Because they step forward with their stories.
wow, there are some amazing people out there, and they really are living magnificent lives with some under very difficult circumstances. So, maybe some of these stories will bubble up in a podcast. Who knows?
Well,
Yeah.
knock on wood, that'll happen.
Yeah, knock on wood,
Really.
wherever that is.
Okay, so we're at trivia portion here. Now we're calling this In Case You Didn't Know.
Okay.
So this is about Cathy. You fly fish, and so you go, girl. And where do you go?
The Kinnickinnick River
Oh.
in River Falls, Wisconsin.
Okay.
Actually, I went to school at UW River Falls, and some of my guy friends at the time taught me, or attempted to teach me, and I ended up in the trees most of the time and falling into the river. That didn't work out very well. But now that I've a little more, a little bit better with my back cast, I go to Montana. And
Okay, so you're definitely the river runs through it kind of gal, right?
I am.
Okay.
I am. I love it. It's meditative. It's beautiful. I do not tie my own flies. That's too putsy.
Okay.
Don't want that. But there's just something about standing in rubber pants in the middle of a stream with no cell phone, and it's a beautiful
That
thing.
is awesome. Good for you.
Thank
Then we go from there, though, to you love clay sculpture and creating mosaics, which that's putsy, though.
It is, yes, it is putsy. But I love glass. I love things that shimmer and shine. I'm like a crow. So I love taking things and smashing them and making them into something different. So mosaics are perfect for me. Maybe it's the aggression that just comes out. I don't
Maybe I
know.
was trying to think, maybe the journalists, we've done that through a bunch of years, right? We've taken whatever the original was, kind of smashed it, smooshed it together, right? And then
And
came
put it
out
back-
something, yeah.
Exactly. So I love mosaics, and the clay sculpture, I'm not that great, to be frank with you. It is just kind of fun to get your hands in the clay, and the clay speaks to you.
Oh.
It does. The clay tells you what it wants to be. So
So
It's
so
kind of
Ghost and
interesting.
Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore,
Oh, I
always
just
come
love
together
that.
on that one. Is like,
Oh.
I just So it tells you what it
that
wants
would be
to be.
interesting, actually, if that
Okay.
would have happened to me, but that
Yeah.
probably won't.
Okay.
But I think the clay speaks to you, and it does take on a life of its own.
Oh
And
no,
so
we
some-
need to put that out in the universe for you. So if that's one of your dreams, okay, universe has heard us. We'll bring it forward for Cathy.
Oh, that would be interesting. Yes. So that's what I do in my free time for the most part when I'm not taking a nap.
Right, exactly. Because oh my gosh, you're so busy. I appreciate your time so much. I
I
really
am
do
so
for
happy to
joining me.
see you, and this is amazing. I'm so happy you're doing this.
Oh, well,
Thank you.
when you get to a certain point, it's like I wasn't quite done. I wanted to do more, I wanted to talk to more people.
Well, you're creative.
And so this, What's Next with Diana Pierce, has given me the opportunity to now kind of look at the 50 plus. So it's a lot of my peeps. I know boomers are still, they still want content, and yet a lot of the content has kind of shifted a little bit younger.
Right.
But we still have a lot of content that's geared for the 50 plus crowd. So thank
Right.
you so much. And
Thank
In
you.
and Mine is just part of that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
I really do.
Okay, so for our audience at home, for more information about End in Mind, just head to www.endinmindproject, one word, .org.